G'day viewers and welcome to another OnSide SA soccer show. In today's episode we'll be discussing the Saudi Arabia influence in the Premiership, the Swedish Allsvenskan matches this weekend, and the new competition in North America between the MLS clubs and the Mexican clubs. And also we will discuss Lionel Messi is expected to play Saturday morning South African time for Inter Miami. Joining me now will be our regular UK correspondent, Stevie Braham. Steve, good morning. How are you going?
Morning. All right, thanks, Budge.
Steve, I'm sure you heard the introduction about the Saudis and your man Mitrovic. What the hell's going on with the interference?
Well, I mean, obviously we knew that Al Hilal, one of the bigger clubs owned by the PIF, had put a bid in. They put in two bids, I understand, both much lower than Fulham have valued him at. Yeah. But the latest we heard last night, all of a sudden Sky Sports were saying that a spokesman for Mitrovic had said he refuses to play for the club again because he wants to move. Well, you know, obviously this starts to become, you know, pretty destabilising, and I think just because, you know, they want to pay him a lot of money doesn't mean that the club should accept a lower bid than they think he's worth. And that applies to you know, to any of the players that the PIF back clubs are doing. You know, they're happy to pay the players, you know, astronomical wages, but they can't then expect to get the, you know, why should Fulham and other clubs sell their players on the cheap? So, you know, I don't think it's going to have a happy ending for us, but I think the Khans, you know, will dig their heels in, and I don't think they'll accept a low bid for him.
Yeah, I was reading Jordan Henderson could be leaving Liverpool, £12 million, according, you know, you don't mind that, and Fabinho, I can't believe they offered 40 for him. But Riyad Mahrez, according to the Manchester newspaper, they'd already done the deal, like with obviously Mitrovic, before offering Man City, was it 25 or 30 million? Surely that's not right.
Well, it isn't right, and you know the way it should be done is that a club should agree a fee with the other club, and then they discuss personal terms. But what's happening is they're deliberately agreeing personal terms, obviously turning the heads of the players, because Mitrovic, for example, has been offered, so we understand, close to £500,000 a week. You know, we pay him about 100,000 a week. You know, he's our, I think, joint highest paid player, which is still incredible.
Yes.
But you know, somebody already is saying, look, we'll pay you £25 million a year. Of course, his head's going to be turned, and then it puts pressure on the selling club.
Yeah.
And they're doing this, and you know, and I think this is quite a destabilising thing that they're doing. But there's no control. I mean, who's going to control it? FFP doesn't seem to apply to them. FIFA don't seem to take any notice because Infantino is probably in their, you know, probably in their pocket anyway. They're very keen to host the World Cup, so you know, I think it's going to carry on unchecked for a while. For me, the way that they could stop it is, well, I won't stop it, but for say we can only control what happens in this country, is for younger players is to say, you go where you want, but you're not going to play for your country. And you know, obviously they adopted that in rugby a few years ago. You know, it might then stop some of the drain, because the next thing could happen is you could get some of the biggest players, the younger players, being you know, transferred out. So yeah.
What I heard, you know, I watch ESPN FC every morning at 7 o'clock, and Mark Ogden, who's a respected journalist, and he came on, they were discussing it, and what he was told was they're going to target the top 50 players in the world whose contracts have expired. That's how they're going to grow it, or they're going to start it, and then obviously look to start buying one or two other players. And if that's the case, you don't mind. But once they start, I see Bernardo Silva reportedly £700,000 a week they've offered him. Now, crikey, what can you imagine Guardiola? He was their key man last year. What are Man City going to offer him to keep him? So definitely,
they can't match that. I mean, there's no way that the big clubs generally, even the biggest, you know, clubs in Europe, can match that, because you pay Bernardo Silva something close to that, the others are going to want it. Haaland, I mean, who's probably on not far short with all his bonuses and everything, but even so, you know, it is very destabilising. And I think, as you say, originally with someone like Ronaldo, you used to think, okay, he's gone at the end of his career.
Yeah.
You know, his time's probably up in Europe. But the fact that they're now targeting sort of younger players, I think is a bit of a worry at the moment. You know, a lot of these teams, obviously 4 of them are owned by the PIF. Again, you know, flouting the rules. Where here in Europe, basically, you can't own more than one club in you know, whichever in the Premier League or La Liga or something.
Yeah.
So it's I think there's a lot more pain to go, but it's especially, you know, with the season about to start in 3 and a bit weeks.
Yeah.
I think it's going to cause some problems.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Steve, fortunately, there's one or two leagues that are started, and our regular Swedish league. There's a game on Friday night, and we get the betting odds up shortly. Bromma Podgkana home against Hammarby. How do you see it going?
Well, since I backed them a few weeks ago, they've lost 4 in a row.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure I'm going to go with them again. Hammarby are having a reasonable season.
Yeah.
I think that I'd probably think if there was to be a winner, I'd go with the away side this time.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed about the Swedish league, it's goals, and 7 to 10 over 2.5 goals. So that's my play there. 2 of the top teams play this week. Djurgården against Elfsborg. Steve, which way do you see it going?
Yeah, I think that'd be a good game. I mean, Elfsborg are top of the table, having replaced Malmo. Djurgården have won 3 in a row. I think they're capable of holding Elfsborg, but I think there's a bit of value in Elfsborg. So for me, you know, I think they've got a good opportunity of going there and getting a result and staying top of the table. Yeah,
I fancy Djurgårdens on Monday to win at home against Malmo, which they did. They've won 8 and drawn one of the last 9 at home, but Elfsborg bar their first league defeat, unbeaten in 14. Steve, I think the draw's a big player there, but it should be a decent game. IFK Banamo against BK Häcken, who won in the Champions League in midweek. I think they won in Ireland, or was it Wales? And 7 to 10, Steve, I think that's a decent price. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. And they're having a good run at the moment. And they just sold one of their players to Sheffield United.
Okay.
As it happens. One of their African players who was playing from Traore. But I think they'll still be too strong. And I think that they should win away from home.
Yeah, totally agree. The team that's turned the corner, ARK Stockholm, Henning Berg, the Man United man, is taken over. Malmo, Steve, couple of bad results, but can you see them rebounding here?
I think that this is a big game. Obviously, AIK are a big side, Malmo are the biggest side in Sweden. I think Malmo should probably start as favourites, and the odds sort of reflect that. You know, they've had 2 surprise defeats. I think, you know, they were looking sort of unbeatable at one point.
Yeah.
I think they'll bounce back personally, and might just edge that. Be close though.
Yeah, I think there'll be a few goals in that as well. On to our second page, where we've got the team I can never catch, Norrköping against Degerfors. Steve, I think Norrköping will win. I should have backed them last week, because the week before they had a player sent off at half-time, just before half-time, and lost 2-1. I know it's short, Steve, but 5 to 10 for me, I think it's a good thing. What do you see?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is quite short, but I think they will start as favourites.
Yeah.
Degerfors are very up and down side. When they lose badly.
Yeah.
But I think Norrköping should start as favourites.
Yeah, the only game they won, Degerfors, away from home was against Bromma Podgkana. Couldn't believe it, but that's the gambling part of it. Steve, I think they've got the odds the other way around, the wrong way around. IFK Gothenburg against Halmstad. How do you see it going, though?
Yeah, Gothenburg are not having a good season at all. You know, I think if they got a point out of that, probably be a semi-decent result for them.
Yeah, to me, totally. I can't believe a team's won 4 games away from home and they're 22 to 10. On to the later game on Sunday, Kalmar against Varberg's Bois. Varberg's really struggling, Steve. Another home victory?
Yeah, it should be. I mean, Kalmar not having the best season, but I think they should be too strong for Varberg's, who are rock bottom.
Yeah, can't win a game, but there's normally goals in these particular games. And last but not least, Monday night, Steve. Always like an interest on Monday night, and I've caught Sirius right the last few weeks. They've won 4 and lost 2 of the last 6, and Jalby hit and miss, especially away from home. I'm on the home side here, Steve. How do you see it going?
Yeah, I think it'll be close, but you're right. I mean, they're both. This is quite an evenly matched contest, but I think of the 2, Sirius probably just about starts as favourites at home.
Yeah, really tricky with the Swedish league, especially when you can't watch it. But you have to take all the facts and figures into account and then have a go. On to a league which I'm sure we're going to be seeing a lot of, especially on ESPN, is the Leagues Cup. And no better man to kick it off on Saturday morning our time, Friday night American time, is Inter Miami versus Cruz Azul. Steve, just having a look at the outright betting, of the top, I think it's 15, 8 are Mexican teams. I found that very strange. But Inter Miami...
Obviously this week, all the matches are being played in the US, which obviously gives them home advantage. Look, it's looking quite likely that Lionel Messi might make his debut for Inter Miami this week. And if so, I think that's going to give them a little bit of an edge. The Mexican League has only recently started. They've only played 3 games, and Miami's opponent have lost all 3. So I think this is an opportunity for them to get a win under their belt. So and I think it's very interesting because this is a tournament that 2 years ago only 8 teams took part in. Now they've decided this is something that they're looking at doing in the future. There's even sort of had some sort of crossover sort of franchise agreement to merge leagues or whatever. So I think this is they're putting. I was wondering whether or not the teams would start rotating and drop, but it sounds like they're all going to take it quite seriously. So I think they're expecting big crowds, especially with obviously all the huge numbers of Mexican football supporters that live in the US. I think they're expecting some huge crowds at some of the games. So I fancy Inter Miami to get going with a win in this.
I can't believe the betting's even money. The moment they announce Messi's going to play, surely those odds have got a drop. And as Cruz Azul have lost these three games this season. Anyway, on to a USA clash. Orlando City versus Houston. Steve, which way do you see it going?
Yeah, it should be a decent game, but I think Orlando are relatively strong at home. I think they should just edge that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'll be taking a Friday night bet. I fancy Orlando City. I think there'll be goals in that, Steve. Houston are capable of scoring, and I saw 9.5 to 10 Orlando City to score over 1.5 goals. So I'll be taking that double into Miami, Orlando, and obviously plus 1.5 goals double as well. Austin against Mazatlan. I think it's pronounced, Steve. Austin at home, 5 wins out of 6. Should be.
Well, I think they should be too strong. They should be too strong. Again, obviously in Texas, going to be a lot of away fans there. Yeah. But I think that Austin should be too strong.
Yeah, they finished 18th last year, and that doesn't bode well. On to another team in Texas is Dallas at home against Charlotte. Steve, how do you see it going?
Yeah, I think this could be a tight game. Charlotte not having a bad season, but I think again at home advantage counts for so much. I think Dallas should start as favourites. Yeah,
they've cost me a few rand over the week, so that'll be one of the games I'll be avoiding. And the last game's interesting, Steve. Vancouver got a decent home record, but Leon won the CONCACAF, which is the North American Champions League, earlier this season. If that's the case, Steve, 18 to 10 looks a fair price.
Yeah, interesting though, and in fact they won this tournament 2 years ago, but they've lost 2 of their 3 league games, Leon, this season. So they haven't started that well, but I think you're right. I think that looks a decent value bet.
Yeah, the other thing with the Mexican teams, they won the Gold Cup, so maybe there's several of them that were involved there, which may have affected their league performances. But unfortunately, we've got a thumb suck. But I think that's a dodgy one. On to Saturday night or Sunday morning our time, Montreal versus Pumas, the Mexican side. Steve, how do you see it going?
Yeah, again, I think home advantage will count here. Montreal are not too bad at home. I think that they look as if they should just edge that.
Yeah, 14 to 10 I thought was a big price, so I may have a dabble on that. The New York-Boston clash between the New York Red Bulls and New England, Steve. New York Red Bulls beat them the other week. Do you see them doing it again?
They could do, but that was a surprise to me because New England are having a tremendous season. I think that the odds look a little bit too short for me for Red Bulls. I wouldn't be at all surprised if the Revolution gets something there.
Yeah, I totally agree. 27-10. I thought that was a nice, decent price. It was 9-10 win and draw New England as well, Steve. I've got Philadelphia, who I think they got beat in the final by Leon. Burying Tijuana this week, Steve. I think they're good things, Philadelphia. Do you agree?
Yeah. I mean, they're having a reasonable season, and I hope they're quite strong. I think they should be. I think until we see how these first round of matches go, we don't know really what the form is like of the Mexican teams, especially as we know they've only played 3 games, and US teams are part way through their season. So I think Philadelphia should certainly start as favourites.
Yeah, I'm all over Philadelphia this weekend. Next game should be a decent game, Steve. Real Salt Lake versus Seattle. How do you see it going?
Yeah, I think it will be. Real Salt Lake, funny sort of side. I mean, they've been strong away. Yeah. One of the best away records. But Seattle are having a decent season. I think this could be quite close, this one.
Yeah, 11-10. They had won their last 2 at home, Real Salt Lake, but this is a big game in the group. So 24-10, the draw looks a player. Portland, San Jose, Steve. How do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, Portland are not having the best season, but at home they probably should again start as favourites, I think.
Yeah, a bit tricky. I'm say the draw 5-2 a play, but I think there'll be goals in all these games. They've got nothing to lose, so I think they'll all be on the front foot. On to Monday morning, Steve, or Sunday night, SA time. I can't believe New York City, who were going great last season, struggling. Can they beat Atlas?
I think they can, as you say. I mean, they are struggling. A real surprise. But I think they should be too strong for the Mexican side.
Yeah, it's hard to take a team even money when they've drawn 7 of the 9 games and drawn the last 3 at home. But playing an Atlas side we don't know much about, they could be worth chancing. Columbus versus St. Louis, Steve. Another game where 29-10 St. Louis looks a big price.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Columbus are having a decent season, probably one of their best for a while. But as you say, it's a big price for St. Louis. Who are sort of sitting near the top of the conference. I think there'll be a close game. I wouldn't be surprised if they cancel each other out, though. Yeah. I think with the first game in the group, neither team wants to lose. I think there might be some cagey games.
Yeah, I agree. Though even money, St. Louis double chance win and draw. So that will be my suggestion that game. And Steve, my play for the weekend on these last 3 games. Cincinnati against Sporting Kansas City. I got lucky last week, Cincinnati. They beat Nashville at 2 players sent off when it was tight, but 11 wins and a draw in the last 12 home league games. Steve, I think even money's a gift. How do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, Cincinnati, apart from that drawn game against New England, they've won every game at home. Nashville are having a decent season, but I think Cincinnati should certainly start as favourites. Yeah,
it's Sporting Kansas City. They've upset me a few times, but no wins in the last 4 away from home. I'm all over Cincinnati. Nashville as well, Steve. Colorado, in my opinion, are the weakest team in the MLS. 7-10 Nashville, I think, is a gift. Nashville to win by more than 1.5, or by more than a goal, is 16-10. So I'll be having a dip on that as well. Nashville for you, Steve?
Yeah, they should do. I mean, Colorado got a point last week, but rock bottom of the conference. I think Nashville should start as clear favourites.
And Minnesota, who cost me a few rand last week, Steve at home. They've been a bit inconsistent, but with Timo Pukki now fit and ready, I think they'll beat Pueblo. I had a look at the Mexican side. They've only got 1 point from their 3 league games, and they did finish 11th last season. So I'm all over 11-10 Minnesota. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think so. As I say, I mean, Minnesota have been a bit up and down. We backed them 1 week and they lost, and the next week they go and win comfortably. So, but I think you're right. I think they should start as clear favourites.
Always tricky, but we've got to have a dip, and 2 weeks' time, or end of the month, first week of next month, championship starts, our PSL starts, and the Charity Shield, or Community Shield as it's known now, starts. So we have to have something to play with. Steve, best bet and value bet, please.
Tricky one. I think I'm going to go for Malmo as my best bet. I think they're going to bounce back. And my value bet, I couldn't decide between a couple, but I think I might go for New England. Yeah. I think there's a lot of value in that, and I think they could be too strong.
Yeah, I went the other way, Steve. My best bets were Cincinnati. I hesitated between them and Minnesota, but they cost me last week. So Cincinnati it is, and Homestead. 22-10 away from home against, I just had a look, I just saw that was decent value.
That was my other one I was thinking about, but I thought, well, I'll do one from the Alex Scan and one from the Leagues Cup.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But it'd be interesting to see, obviously we're not going to see any of these games, the Leagues Cup ones, so it'd be interesting to see the results and see whether or not, the US teams particularly are putting out their stronger sides and how they fare in the opening week.
Yeah, I think they have no option. Especially, there's no income for the fans, so you might as well play your best team, get through the last 16 and so on. So it will be interesting. Steve, thanks very much, and we'll speak to you next week.
Absolutely. Cheers, Budge.
All the best, Steve. Our UK correspondent, Stevie Braham. On to the Saturday Soccer Exotics, and we start with the Soccer 6, which will come up shortly, and I'm going the field in the Djurgårdens versus Elfsborg clash. Golfley, IF and Ostersons. I've gone the field in that particular match. I'm going for Albright to avoid defeat at Skövde. I've thrown the draw in with fancied FC Copenhagen at Lyngby, and ending with two bankers. Hacking to be too good for IFK Bonamo, and Mulder to be too good for Sarpsborg 08, 216. On to our second Soccer 6. I'm banking Palmeiras in the Brazilian Serie A to beat Fortaleza. I've gone the field in the friendly, being played in the USA between Arsenal and Man United. I'm chancing Bahia to avoid defeat at home against Corinthians. Going the field in the New York Red Bulls versus New England Revolution match. I think Real Salt Lake will be too good for Seattle Sounders, and I've thrown the draw in a friendly between Barcelona and Juventus, 216. On to the Soccer 10, I'm banking Palmeiras to beat Fortaleza. Criciúma win and draw at home against Novo Horizontina. The field in the Arsenal versus Man United game. I don't think Bahia will lose at home against Corinthians, as well as Cuiabá to avoid defeat at home against Sao Paulo. On to the next page is I've got New England Revolution, the field against the New York Red Bulls, the field against New England Revolution, and ending up with 3 or 4 bankers. Grêmio to beat Atlético Mineiro, Real Salt Lake to beat Seattle Sounders, Portland Timbers to avoid defeat at home against San Jose Earthquakes, and I think Barcelona will beat Juventus 288. On to the Soccer 13 for the weekend. I'm banking Häcken to beat IFK Bonamo, Mulder to beat Sarpsborg 08, FC Copenhagen to avoid defeat at Lyngby. I'm going HJK Helsinki win and draw against Temperine Elves, the field in the Interturco SJK Sarnajung match. I'm going for AC Ula win and draw at home against KTP. I think Flamengo will be too strong at home against America Mineiro. On to the second page, I'm going for Palmeiras to beat Fortaleza. I've thrown the draw in with Malmo at ARK Stockholm. The field in the IFK Gothenburg Halmstad match. I'm ending up with 3 bankers. IFK Norrköping to beat Degerfors, Kalmar to beat Varbergs Bois, and 8 Sikten, who top of the Superettan, to be too good at home for Young Kopping Sodra, 288. On to our budgies bets for the weekend. I'm going over 2.5 goals in the Bromma Pochkana Hammarby and IFK Bonamo BK Häcken matches. I'm going over 2.5 goals on both teams to score no in the IFK Norrköping versus Degerfors clash. And I think Sirius will be too good at home on Monday against some Jolby. Great odds, still can't believe it. 7,100 to 200. On to our Leagues Cup quartet. I'm going into Miami to beat Cruz Azul. I'm going Philadelphia to beat Tijuana, Cincinnati to beat Sporting KC, and Nashville to beat Colorado. 2,500 to 200. On to our team goals. I'm going Philadelphia, Real Salt Lake, Cincinnati, Nashville and Minnesota, all to score over 1.5 goals, 4,600 to 200. Our over 2.5 goal sides are Inter Miami versus Cruz Azul, Orlando City versus Houston, Nashville versus Colorado, and Minnesota versus Puebla, 2,100 to 200. On to Brazil, where we've got a quad. I'm going Flamengo to beat America Mineiro by more than 1 goal. I'm going RB Bragantino to beat Internacional and Atletico PR to beat Vasco da Gama, and both teams to score in the Bahia versus Corinthians fixture, 3,700 to 200. And our Collis King 6 on Nexa, I'm going Philadelphia beat Tijuana, Cincinnati to beat Sporting Kansas City, Nashville to beat Colorado, Noordkoping to beat Degerfors, Flamengo to beat America Mineiro, and Mulder to beat Salzburg, 4,100 to 200. Thank you very much for watching our OnSide SA Soccer Show, and please remember to stay onside.